But that doesn't mean that stupendous reorganization of the universe by life is not underway. Dreaming wildly, we could imagine subtle artificial changes already taking place, ones we simply haven't recognized. Or it may still be the springtime of the galaxy, and Earth is among only a handful of civilizations just beginning to realize their potential to change the course of cosmic history. Preserving consciousness. What would be the course of the universe if we and other sentient life, acting in a spirit of cosmic environmentalism, did nothing to upset natural balances? The universe would continue for at least tens of billions of years its spectacular expansion that began about 15 billion years ago with the Big Bang. After that, the future gets more murky. But groups of physicists have already begun calculating the ominous events from here to eternity, assuming we and others do nothing to change them. The numbers of years to these remote eras are so unimaginable that one can only begin to visualize them as multiples of the present age of the universe. Thus, 15 billion years becomes one unit in this chronology. 10,000 units into the future, 10,000 times the current age of the universe, all the stars will have spent their nuclear fuels and will be mere glowing cinders. By 10 million units, all planets will have been torn from their stars by the gravitational forces in chance disruptive close encounters with other stars. By 100 million units, near misses between dead stars will have kicked or evaporated all of them out of galaxies, leaving behind a voracious black hole in each galaxy to devour the little remaining matter. By 100 billion units, if current theories of matter are correct, all the protons in all the stars will have decayed to radiation and the subnuclear particles electrons and positrons. In the final act at 1 followed by 90 units, the universe's remaining black holes may have all evaporated and the cosmos may then consist almost entirely of radiation. Yet such a continually expanding universe delights the Imagineers of the distant future. The cosmologists' equations foresee an era when intelligent life has long since transformed itself to ethereal forms, perhaps gossamer collections of nuclear particles tenuously linked together over vast distances. The object of such evanescent life, a fantastic struggle to preserve memories and consciousness in a cosmos growing colder by the eon as supplies of usable energy dwindle. Physicists do not, of course, presume to know the details of how such ghostly beings would be constructed. But they employ the esoteric equations of thermodynamics, information theory and general relativity to establish whether information, the essence of life, could theoretically exist at all under scarcely imaginable physical conditions. A hint of this destiny appeared in a 1929 essay, The World, the Flesh and the Devil, by British physical chemist J.D. Bernal, who wrote, "Consciousness itself may vanish in a humanity that has become completely etherealized, losing its close-knit organism, becoming masses of atoms in space communicating by radiation, and ultimately perhaps resolving itself entirely into light." 19th-century physicists were obsessed with the idea that the universe would ultimately suffer a heat death, as all matter gradually approached an equilibrium temperature and maximum disorder or entropy ensued. With everything at the same temperature, no useful energy would be available to do work, no thoughts could exist in such a world. This was thought to be the inexorable toll of the second law of thermodynamics. But the expanding universe and modern gravitational theory have now exorcised the heat death demon somewhat. Physicists no longer believe that the cosmos will run down in exactly the way their forebears imagined. They say that though entropy will constantly increase, it will not increase as fast as the universe will expand, thus theoretically keeping open the possibility for organization to continue. Physicist Stephen Fauci, who extended Dyson's work, wrote in 1982, "We have thus come to a conclusion which stands the 19th century model on its head. Far from approaching equilibrium, the expanding universe falls further and further behind achieving equilibrium. This gives ample scope for interesting non-equilibrium structures, e.g. life, to develop out of the initial chaos, as has occurred in nature." Ironically, the problem theoreticians now see is not that there may be maximum universal disorder, but that the amount of it will approach a low but constant limit. It would be changeless. Yet life and growth is change. In a world with constant entropy, there is no change, and thus life is impossible. Instead of everything just melting into a soup of constant temperature as in the 19th century picture, life processes of the far distant future would be perpetually in danger of freezing to a grinding halt. Fauci suggests an out. A sufficiently resourceful intelligence inhabiting a critical universe learns how to move black holes, bringing them together from widely separated locations and merging them to increase entropy. Life could then use these merged black holes as a power source. Eternal ethereal life? Dyson theorized that ethereal life could live eternally by husbanding energy resources and hibernating for extended periods between the ages of active contemplation that will be the major function of life in that penultimate state. He concluded sanguinely that, no matter how far we go into the future, there will always be new things happening, new information coming in, new worlds to explore, a constantly expanding domain of life, consciousness and memory. I have found a universe growing without limit in richness and complexity, a universe of life surviving forever and making itself known to its neighbors across unimaginable gulfs of space and time. For entities not accustomed to worrying about events much further removed than a few years, or at most a decade, speculating on the happy or sorry fate of the universe billions of years from now may seem an unlikely exercise. Yet faced with a cosmos that seems to have every appearance of expanding forever, the idea that intelligent life could play a major role in shaping it is the most sobering thought imaginable. Intelligence Unbound, in their recent book, The Anthropic Cosmological Principle, which is packed with formulas, astrophysicists Frank Tipler and Barrow end with a conclusion of truly messianic proportions. Life will have gained control of all matter and forces not only in a single universe, but in all universes whose existence is logically possible. Life will have spread into all spatial regions in all universes which could logically exist, and would have stored an infinite amount of information, including all bits of knowledge which it is logically possible to know. And this is the end. But not quite, because in a footnote they add that a modern theologian might agree that life at this point would then be omnipotent, omnipresent and omniscient. It is impossible to avoid the impression that theology and cosmology are becoming hopelessly entangled. A peculiar theocosmology seems to be emerging without rigid doctrines. And physicist Freeman Dyson set forth its fundamental tenet: if our analysis of the long-range future leads us to raise questions related to the ultimate meaning and purpose of life, then let us examine these questions boldly and without embarrassment. Open questions for an open universe. Eugene F. Malov, an astronautical engineer, is a science writer and broadcaster with the Voice of America in Washington.